Hey guys, and welcome to another video, and in today's topic we'll be talking about the race between US and China. And now so many of you are asking the question, when is the war going to start between these two? Well, most likely the war has started a long time ago. It's just not visible to the naked eye. What do I mean by that? Well, in order for us to understand the present, we have to dig into the past. So at the beginning of technology, we were having everything huge and bulky, and that was due to so many cables. The clutter from black and white TV that was cathode ray tube with so many thin wires inside, and the first computer that was as big as a room and so many wires as well and components. And then the trio had showed up who won a Nobel Prize for their new invention called transistors. Now these transistors are electronic components that do nothing but control electrical pulses between zeros and ones. And then we've got Kilby and Noyce. These two came and revolutionized that to another higher degree, where they were able to combine so many transistors into one microchip. And that was the rise of microchips and the rise of the Silicon Valley. Now, how did that happen and what took place from there? Now, in the 60s, the US was ruling this industry, was the dealer of all dealers, and was making these chips by the thousands, and no one was able to catch up with it until US has incorporated this technology in NASA by reaching the moon, and as well as its military equipment. Now that opened the eyes for so many other nations to get a piece of the pie. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, all of the other nations have realized the threat and security by others, and they've realized the importance of advancing their military equipment in order for them to stay on the edge of things. Now, Japan was one of those great countries that became so good at making these microchips. And you have to understand, these microchips are so complicated into making. Like NTTD, for example, from Intel, these guys walk in a manufactory like they are neurosurgeon performing on brains. And in fact, they really do, because the brain of technology is the microchips. And I'll give you the example of why these microchips and these people wear these clothes and why they are so neat and clean. It's because you have to understand the importance of the microchip itself. It's condensed and made out of small transistor, thinner than a human DNA. And I'm speaking 3 to 4 nanometers here. It's something that's incredibly small that can't be, even with microscopes, you're gonna find difficulty seeing how thin these transistors are. So if you have a small little dust in that microchip, then it will damage it for good. And that's why these manufacturers are what's so-called fabs. They cost America billions and billions of dollars to fund yearly, and US was getting fed up with this, and the problem became even horrendous when Japan got their hands around this technology, of course funded by the Japanese government, and they were able to make these microchips better than the US and selling them to the US. And of course, since there is a history of wars between US and Japan, US did not like that idea. And as a matter of fact, you know what? The US is never going to be happy with someone out there who's trying to compete with it. So what they did, Reagan in 1987 completely blocked the imports of these chips from Japan. And then we had to rely on our fabs in the US. Now, as I said, that was, it costed so much to fund. And here we had another rival that was lurking around Japan, which is the neighbor of Japan, called Taiwan. They just stepped out of China, they didn't know what to do, and back then they were sending their engineers to the US to learn this technology and even work in the Silicon Valley to learn the trades of this game, and they became good at it. And then Taiwan was very intelligent enough to lure these engineers to come back and live in Taiwan and make just about the same technology. And that gave the rise to this businessman who had this amazing idea called Morris Chang. Now, Morris Chang was very intelligent in a way. He saw that the US was happy with the product of Japan. They just were not happy with the idea of Japan competing with the US in this sector. So what he proposed was the idea of, you know what, why don't we use the technology from the US, and all we can do is manufacture these microchips in Taiwan. And America actually liked the idea and funded it by 40%, and that was the rise of TSMC. TSMC, that stands for Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. So Taiwan became 90% of the whole world of microchips that are made in Taiwan, and the other 10% is made of South Korea. Now, with that being said, China is the first consumer of all these microchips, grabbing about 40% of them. And USA is okay with that because USA wants to sell the microchips, of course. They are only putting the technology, and it's another company that's making them. And I will actually get into details as to how it's even chained and how it reaches Taiwan to be made. Because, as we said, this is a process. And in order for us to make these microchips, we have to get the blueprint and the technology from USA. And we get the material and some other chemicals that are involved in this process. We get them from Japan, because we stopped importing chips from Japan, but we didn't stop buying like raw material to make the chips. And then we have the Netherlands company. This company is actually the heart of this process, called ASML. They make the carving machines that make these microchips. So it takes three sources: US technology and the blueprint. Japan gives us the raw material, and Netherlands gives us the machines. And once all these three pieces reach Taiwan, then Taiwan will be able to make the 90% of the microchips to the world. Now, all this stuff is okay until here, until things took a different route. The US is improving its technology daily as well, but then one day they woke up and realized that China has come up with the hypersonic missile.
A report of a Chinese missile test which shows progress with an advanced weapon called a hypersonic missile.
That US intelligence had no idea that China had moved this far ahead. China managed to launch a nuclear-capable hypersonic missile. They launched it into space. It circled the Earth before cruising towards its target. Now, these missiles, they can travel at 5 times the speed of sound. They can fly lower than conventional missiles, and they can also be maneuvered in the air, which makes them very difficult to trace. So
now this missile could go around the globe and reach its target without even being detected by radars. Can you imagine? And the sad news is that the US is still working on this, and it's light years away from reaching anywhere. And the Chinese were able, their engineers were able to manufacture these missiles by incorporating the US microchips. Now, of course, America is not going to allow this to happen. You know, it's just a no-no. But now we came to a clash where the ideologies became a problem. So if the US is stopping China from advancing its fleet of military, it's like you are suppressing a country, and that's never going to happen. So that's what gave China the new opportunities to seek the Silky Roads. And the Silky Roads been out there for centuries and centuries, long time ago, and now it seems like China is gonna have to use that again so they can stay away from the US. And the US is not going to allow China to do that, because if they allow China to improve on its military, then most likely it's gonna improve in its artificial intelligence and so many other aspects in our technology, and that becomes a threat to the US.
A demonstration of US military power in some of the world's most hotly contested waters. The Nimitz is leading a carrier strike group that entered the South China Sea 2 weeks ago. Its presence riles China, which claims historic jurisdiction over almost the entire South China.
US officials have ordered it to cease exporting two of its top computing chips for artificial intelligence work to China.
So that is why everything is halting in the world, everything is stalling, because we came neck to neck and now we just don't know what to do. And it seems like there is no other nation out there that's capable of mending what's taken place, because the US is not going to allow China to advance anymore, and China is not going to stop from advancing either. This Cold War is still gonna keep going, and there is no way we can stop it from both sides. And I hope there is a cure to it soon, because it seems like it defeated all globalization and everything that it achieved in the past decades, and now it seems like it's all went down the drain, because we did not have a foundation to this, and we should have known that this was gonna happen. But again, we can't predict everything in the world, and since we did not pay attention to this, I hope we can at least mend things between these two countries so that the whole world could proceed to normal stages again. And if you find this information informative, please don't hesitate to hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.